Hello, and welcome to Caribbean Connections, Caribbean Airlines Thought Leadership Series, where we sit and chat with leaders from throughout the region and the diaspora about their journeys and their vision for the Caribbean. In this episode, we're joined by Ms. Karen Darbasie, the Group Chief Executive Officer at First Citizens Bank. Ms. Darbasie has served as the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Bankers Association and was the former chair of Trinidad Nitrogen Limited. She's also held senior positions in many organizations, including the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago. It's especially heartening to engage with female leaders in the region. Welcome. Ms. Darbasie, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Dion. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it is indeed so. You know, we're here on set and in this series of Caribbean Connections where we meet with leading personalities in the region. And when we looked at approaching you, we recognized, of course, that you have a wealth of experience and knowledge in major areas like energy and finance. As a matter of fact, you've worked in these major industries. One of the standout points, however, is that by training, you're actually an engineer, but you lead one of the region's foremost financial institutions. Can you walk us through, the professional journey that you've had to this point?
Well, that's an interesting question. Not the first time I've been asked that question, to be honest. So let's start by saying I do have an affinity for numbers. I have a love for numbers. I know that sounds odd. My son shares that same love for numbers. So I started off very much as an engineer, as you said, my training. I actually have 2 engineering degrees, a BSc in electrical engineering and then a master's in telecom. And I worked for just under 10 years for what is now TSTT. I actually joined it at a time when some of your younger viewing audience may not have known it as telco. So I worked as an engineer. After I did my master's in telecommunications, I came back. I went back into, it was TSTT, no, it was still telco at that time. And after 2 years, I decided to do my MBA because I thought my training was all very technical oriented and I wanted to get a little bit more of a breadth of training in more of management skills. I was moving up in my career at that point in time. And after I did my MBA and came back, I worked for a year again for TSTT and decided at that stage that I wanted in the long term to have a career in consulting and that balancing finance with a technical background would give me a very good overarching kind of experience to go into more general management consulting. And interestingly, was approached by a bank at that time that I was thinking about that career choice and made a very conscious decision to go into finance. At that time, I had decided it was for 5 years. And I actually said that in my interview. I'm here for 5 years. This is my career progression that I've mapped out for myself. And I moved into banking and found that banking provided me with an ability to incorporate my love and my need to manipulate numbers with adding on the interpersonal skills and relationship management that comes with actually being part of a banking fraternity. And the combination of, I guess, managing the interpersonal relationships, the relationship skills, and building out a longer term relationship, and still using my love of numbers in that appealed to me. And here am I, almost 28, almost 30 years later, still in banking. I've moved from one area to another in banking, but have always been able to combine those 2 things that I found I like. I like dealing with people. I like being able to see that I'm contributing towards somebody's long-term goals, whether it be an individual or a company. And I get that from the relationship side and working through that. And that has come from my training as an engineer, as well as what I am as a person, which is a person who likes dealing with people.
That's most interesting that we actually both have engineering background.
Oh, that's very interesting.
My master's is a telecoms master's.
Oh, that is so interesting. And you're in communications.
I'm in communications. So when I ask the questions, but why are you in corporate communications? I say to persons that it allows me to deal with the soft side of engineering. So I can relate very much to that progression and understanding where you want to take your career and guiding it in that direction. And in the course of your career, you know that we encounter situations as professionals along the way that provide us with experience. Some of them present challenges. And in the course of your very extensive career, how have you dealt with, can you give us an example of a situation that tested that mix of your financial engineering and that dealing with persons, and how you dealt with that?
Difficult situations arise for all of us, regardless of what stage you are in your career, all the time. What am I known for in maneuvering through difficult situations? Friends would tell you I always have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. A friend of mine told me this week, Karen, you're overthinking this. But I overthink up front so that I have it mentally mapped. If this goes this way, this is how I'm moving. If this goes this way, this is how I'm moving. And I actually bring that to bear in all aspects of my life. You don't separate difficulties. Difficulties arise in your personal life while you're dealing with issues. Difficulties arise all around. In addition to trying to think out how things could develop and planning it mentally, and sometimes planning it out in writing ahead of time, is lean on trusted circles of advisors, whether they be friends in your personal capacity, whether it be technical advisors in your work capacity. Know your network and don't be afraid to lean and ask for assistance, ask for guidance, ask for input. I say to people all the time, I'm very well aware, leading an institution, that the buck stops with me. The responsibility to chart the decision and the path of execution that I think is right, and that's my responsibility, and that burden rests on me as the leader. But I do it with as wide a cross-section of input as I can take into account in order to ensure that we maneuver the situation in the best possible way for the stakeholders for that particular situation. So I think plan, because things never go according to where it's expected. Take advice and learn and continue to grow and lean and plan.
That's the part of the engineer in us, the root cause analysis.
Correct.
Taking guidance, looking at things from multiple perspectives, the analyzing and the synthesizing, always with advice and guidance. Beautifully put. Just shifting a bit. First Citizens is known regionally as a leading financial institution. What are some of the critical success factors that you believe have helped the organization to, one, get to that position, and of course, to maintain that course of success?
Actually, as you asked the question, I thought what we try to project as a financial services institution is a financial services partner that brings, and I'm taking your tagline now, the warmth of the Caribbean in what we deliver. Don't forget that that's who we are as a people. We are warm, we are caring. We are trying to mesh being a solid financial services partner with bringing that warmth and that understanding and that ability to deal with each individual as a person or each entity for what they're bringing to the table. So remember where you've come from and remember who you are, and don't lose sight of that in moving forward. As a group, we spent a lot of time in developing our vision, our strategy, our mission statements, and then in ensuring that the strategy that we put in place was shared throughout the organization. So there is an understanding of the strategy, there is an understanding of where we are going in the long term and the steps that we are taking to get there. And then I would think the third part for me is I constantly, in everything that we do, try to take into account balancing amongst our many stakeholders. And I identify our stakeholders like this. Customer is easy, employee is easy. Those are always two very critical stakeholders. We're a publicly traded entity, so our shareholders is also a third very important stakeholder. But given who we are and given the region in which we operate, the general public of all of the countries in which we operate, in which we work, that general public is a very important stakeholder as well. So I guess a number of different things being brought to bear, ensuring clear alignment on vision and mission and buy-in, ensuring that our strategy is understood throughout the organization, and ensuring that our valued stakeholders' needs are met and balanced in how we move the organization forward.
Speaking of your stakeholders, First Citizens, or the FCB group, has a very notable corporate social responsibility presence.
Yes.
And your initiatives are well known and documented. Which projects have you been drawn to and why?
When I joined the organization, we have I would say 5 clearly defined areas of focus in corporate social responsibility: youth, sport, gender, culture, and green. We're trying to be environmentally conscious and to employ environmental social governance in what we do. The youth and gender in particular spoke to me as a person. Youth because I'm a mom, gender because I'm a woman, and I've understood what are the quirks associated with managing as a working mom, in managing as a woman trying to progress her career, in managing just difficulties that we face on a day-to-day basis. And one of the initiatives that is very close to my heart is our Girls First initiative, because it combines youth and the needs of women or younger women. And we launched that initiative maybe 4 years ago. I think it's going from strength to strength. And it is one where we are consciously working to try to engage with young women, with girls in an 11 to 19 age group, 11 to 18 age group, to really show to them that the world is your oyster. You can dream and you can work towards an objective for you. And no one should dictate what that objective is. Your dream doesn't have to be static. Your dream can change as you take into, encompass in you different experiences and learn more about yourselves. So understand that not everybody's path is yours, but understand that your path is real for you, it's achievable for you, and that you can aim for it. And that's what the Girls First symposium, the initiative, has meant to me. It's something that we've worked on. We have, after we launched Girl First, I think a year and a half later, we started a route onto young men to get them to understand something similar, but to engage them in a manner that means something to them and that they will identify with and assimilate. So those two are the ones that, I mean, we do lots of things. The Sports Foundation, the National Sports Award. On the cultural front, we span the range of cultural spectrum in the country. But for me, the Girls First initiative and the Boys Symposium are the ones that touch really who I am at a core.
I can tell that. You seem very passionate
I am.
about it, and that is clear. It's a very powerful message as well, because the guidance for our youth is critical.
Correct.
As a country, as a region, you know. So that, recognizing that, what advice can you give to upcoming entrepreneurs to help them to propel their success?
An entrepreneurial type of organization has to be flexible, it has to be innovative, it has to be nimble, remain focused on your market share, be passionate about what you are getting involved in, remain focused on your customers. But, and this is a banker in me talking now, don't lose sight of your processes. When you come to a bank, banks want to make sure you're keeping your records appropriately. It doesn't require a whole lot of detail, but make sure you are consistent and every day keeping track of what you're doing, because that governance, which is what I would call it, will stand you in good stead as your business starts to take off. Find a mentor or mentors. I think mentorship in young, small and medium-sized enterprises is critical to allow the same thing I was speaking about earlier, to getting a wider range of perspectives when you're growing your organization. Don't be afraid to ask questions and look for someone who you trust, because not everyone has your back at the end of the day, but you have to be able to lean, you have to be able to depend on other people. You're not doing this on your own. And understand that the path is never going to be straightforward, that you're going to stumble, but when you stumble, brush off your knees, get up and move again. There are a lot of areas and a lot of institutions that provide services for SMEs. Do your research and make sure you capitalize on as much of that as you can. But for me, I think the mentorship and making sure that while you're growing and you're driving, you don't lose track of the discipline that's required, because your business will grow. Your business will grow. And that discipline is what, targeted with your drive and your passion and your innovation, those two will allow you to grow beyond just being a micro entity and to grow to developing what you as an entrepreneur would be dreaming about.
Plan for growth.
Plan for growth, correct.
Plan for growth. Ms. Darbasie, this has been insightful. It has been motivating and very real. There is an authenticity to your delivery, which is very inspiring. Thank you for being our guest, and I'm sure our viewers would have benefited tremendously from your perspective.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be part of your series.